Oh, hello. Don't mind me, I'm just about to apply my clown makeup as it is time to talk about Bloodborne once again because what the hell is going on? Yes, with rumours swirling of another state of play incoming potentially as soon as this week at the time of recording, of course it's only natural that those of us that love Bloodborne and are desperate to see it return in any shape or form begin to unreasonably get our hopes up again for some kind of an appearance. Only this time, maybe it's the delusion talking, but it does feel like there is a lot of smoke here. And in today's video, I want to take a holistic look at the current situation surrounding Bloodborne and the many oddities that keep piling up, spurred on by Sony's recent DMCA takedowns of two major Bloodborne fan projects within the span of a few days. So, what exactly is going on with this beloved game, if anything at all? Over the years, it feels like discourse around Bloodborne has only continued to grow more fervent, having reached a fever pitch in the last few years or so, and at least as far as this Bloodborne fan is concerned, now is absolutely the time to resurrect the game and give it the attention it deserves. Do you recognise this, by the way? This is one of Sony's Totaku figures from 2018. It was basically their take on Amiibo. Of course, I had to get the Bloodborne one. It's actually pretty cool. I kind of feel like these things dropped off the face of the earth a bit, but I don't know, he's kind of neat. Before we get started on the video, guys, if you enjoyed this one, make sure to hit subscribe to stay up to date with me and the channel, and help continue to push this channel to its next major milestone. I really do appreciate all of the support so far. Okay, so what's the deal with Bloodborne? The reason people are so desperate for this game to receive some kind of quality of life update, whether that's in the form of a simple remaster, or full remake, or hell, just some kind of patch, is because unlike the rest of its Soulsborne brethren, Bloodborne languishes to this day in a frustratingly poor state. Now, I'm not a technical guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that Bloodborne looks and runs weirdly. There's no two ways about it. Frame pacing has often been the bane of From Software's games, and never is it more apparent than here. Despite being locked to 30 FPS, Bloodborne looks choppy and uneven, even more so than 30 FPS kind of does these days, due to poor frame pacing, wherein, as I understand it, although it does run at 30 frames a second, the frames themselves are not spaced out evenly, which is why the game stutters and hitches weirdly, while the game's visual fidelity is also still trapped at 1080p, though again, with a number of caveats that potentially make it look even worse. And all of this is happening while virtually every other Soulsborne title from that team has received some kind of patch or upgrade that helps to modernise them in a noticeable way. Both Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro, for example, two games that released after Bloodborne, are fully playable at 60 FPS, a smooth 60 FPS on the PS5. It may have even been possible on the PS4 Pro, I can't remember exactly, but regardless, they had the capacity built in, I believe, to have their frame rates unlocked on more powerful hardware, so you get that performance jump, the kind of performance jump that Bloodborne simply doesn't have. While Demon's Souls, the original Soulsborne game, of course, received a full remake at the PS5's launch as well. In many circles, Bloodborne is arguably, and I'm probably very biased here, the most beloved of the lot, and so to see it being completely left out in the cold for seemingly no reason at all is infuriating, with annoyance among the community only festering further when it's revealed that studios like Bluepoint, which theoretically could have been working on a Bloodborne title, it was heavily rumoured for a very long time, have in fact wasted years on completely nonsensical projects instead at Sony's behest that seemingly don't suit them at all, thus setting a team like that back potentially an entire generation. And there's been plenty of speculation where Bloodborne is concerned. Maybe the game is being saved for a Demon's Souls style remake to help launch the PS6 with a bang, or maybe it has something to do with Sony themselves, seeing as the game remains a PlayStation exclusive. To this date, it is one of the few PlayStation exclusives to have not received a PC port either, while again, numerous games that released around or after Bloodborne have, with some of the choices in particular being truly baffling. Until Dawn, for example, which released around the exact same time as Bloodborne, has received a full remake. Likely for a bit of transmedia synergy with the upcoming movie, but did anyone really want this? Judging by what appears to be absolutely disastrous sales for the Until Dawn remake, and I'm going to have to go ahead and say probably not. And yet, while people have been clamouring for this game to get some kind of update for a while now, I've personally remained pretty steadfast in my belief that the game was unlikely to really receive anything significant until its 10th anniversary, which, by the way, is not far off. The game released first in North America on the 24th of March 2015, followed a day later in PAL regions, then a day later again in its home country of Japan, and finally another day later for us suckers here in the UK on the 27th of March. But regardless, it means we are barely a month and a half or so away from the 10-year anniversary of the game, which in my opinion is a pretty big deal. And so while it absolutely would have been nice for the game to be patched to modern standards a few years ago, or frankly even longer, I've always kind of held out hope that the 10-year anniversary marks the last bastion for Bloodborne fans. And while it's likely foolish to hope, there's definitely been a lot of weirdness lately surrounding this game, perhaps even more so than usual. First things first, we have to address the PlayStation 30th anniversary trailer, because this felt so incredibly on the nose that it almost has to have been intentional. I mean, of course it was intentional, somebody edited this trailer together in this way. Released in December of 2024, so very recently for, funnily enough, PlayStation's 30th anniversary, the trailer celebrates the lineage of PlayStation by featuring clips from various exclusives from across the years, and each of these clips is accompanied by a single word that kind of sums them up. You know, for example, it shows God of War, and it says it's about family. It shows Spider-Man, and it says it's about sacrifice. It shows the aforementioned Demon's Souls remake, and says it's about soul. Loads of clips like that spliced together in a row. And I remember watching it for the first time, wondering, are they even going to mention Bloodborne? And for the vast majority of the trailer, it really looks like it's just not going to happen. But then it does. However, not only is Bloodborne referenced in this trailer, but it is the very last clip shown, with the trailer ending on a shot of the hunter clashing with the cleric beast as the words "it's about persistence" flash up on screen. Now, I don't want to hand-wave away the fact that this could all be a massive coincidence, and let's face it, it probably is, but I don't think there's a single person out there who is even tangentially interested in Bloodborne and seeing it reappear that didn't see that moment in the trailer and go, they know what they're doing with that. They know what they're doing with that. When I say it feels on the nose, it really does. I mean, it could barely be more deliberate. Not only do they choose Bloodborne of every single game to end the trailer on, but persistence being the word of choice is also interesting. Now again, it could all be a big load of nothing. After all, these games are inherently about persistence. That's a huge element at the very core of them. But I mean, when I watched it, I know that my first thoughts went straight to the idea of persistence relating to the wait for something Bloodborne related. It's very conspicuous, and this is also no small thing. By that I mean, the very top comment on the trailer is unsurprisingly related to the Bloodborne clip. That's the only part of this entire trailer that it pulls out. Simply reading, "Ending this video on Bloodborne truly is something." And it has amassed a massive 23,000 likes, far eclipsing every single other comment. And even then, those closest behind it are also almost exclusively about the Bloodborne clip too. This isn't an isolated incident. PlayStation fans are absolutely crying out for some official acknowledgement of Bloodborne, to the point where it's being talked about everywhere. You simply cannot escape it at the moment. Miyazaki himself has been asked about it relatively recently. Shuhei Yoshida has been asked about it even more recently. Above all other games, this is the one that keeps cropping up time and time again, leading people to, in my opinion at least, rightfully believe that there is no way Sony can't hear the demand, and that moments like this clip, capping off the 30th anniversary trailer of all places, are knowing glances being shot to a starved community. And speculation has only continued to ratchet up over the last week or so, with 2 high-profile DMCA takedowns of venerated Bloodborne fan projects by Sony themselves, fueling theories that Sony might be clearing the way for an official release of their own. First up was Lance McDonald's famous 60 FPS patch for Bloodborne that he released back in February of 2021. So this thing has been out in the open for a long time now, and yet Sony decides to have it taken down 4 years later, just as the 10th anniversary of the game is on the horizon. Again, very suspicious, highly conspicuous timing. Even here, though, when the patch was first released 4 years ago, people were desperate for Bloodborne and its performance issues to be addressed, to the point where they began taking it upon themselves to prove it's at least possible, and this particular patch was released as the PS4 Pro was about to be replaced by the PlayStation 5, and thus it became clear, and I'm paraphrasing Lance's own words here, that even with the PS4 Pro's boost mode, that Bloodborne wasn't set to receive any kind of enhancement going into the next generation. And then, barely 5 days following the takedown of Lance McDonald's 60 FPS patch, another acclaimed Bloodborne fan project, the incredible Bloodborne PSX demake by Lilith Walther, was issued a takedown notice by Sony, only continuing to add fuel to the fire in a big way. The Bloodborne PSX demake was a beloved, highly publicised project, which even received its own spin-off in the form of retro-styled racer Bloodborne Kart, though later renamed Nightmare Kart, and was a love letter to Bloodborne itself in the purest possible form. Again, the demake was released February 2022, meaning it's been 3 full years since its initial release. The timing of this takedown, coupled with the removal of the 60 FPS patch, seems to speak volumes. Lance McDonald himself even noted, and I quote, "My copium theory is that Sony DMCA'd the 60 FPS patch and the video about the Bloodborne demake, so that when they announce a 60 FPS remake, Google searching for Bloodborne 60 FPS and Bloodborne Remake won't have collisions with our fan projects." While this is obviously still only speculation on Lance's part, it seems to make total sense to me, and everyone is clearly in the same boat regarding what we think might be up. Of course, these are some of the bigger news pieces recently, but the game has very much been on everyone's mind for a while now, and there are numerous other smaller, less direct reasons to believe too. Even in Astrobot, which featured a litany of PlayStation references, there is a stage that, in my opinion at least, while not officially named as such and while not an actual mascot stage in the likes of the Ape Escape or God of War or Horizon ones, is very clearly meant to be Yharnam, with the astral clock tower, eerie green light, and everything. Plus, Sony continues to get further into bed with Kadokawa, From Software's parent company, and while they didn't end up purchasing Kadokawa outright, as it seemed might happen late last year, they did become the majority shareholder in the company, investing a massive amount of money into them. But returning to our 2 previous examples, well, these are 2 very high-profile takedowns occurring within days of each other after years of uninterrupted operation, and we are mere weeks away from Bloodborne's 10th anniversary. What's more, as I mentioned earlier, there are rumours that a state of play might be happening as early as the week of the 10th of February, so by the time this video goes live, it may have even been announced, we'll just have to see. So, does this Bloodborne fan expect to see anything from the game in the coming weeks, and if so, what do I want to see? I'm honestly at the stage now where I simply don't know what to believe, but I want to believe, and I'm sticking to my guns in saying that if something is ever going to materialise for this game, it'll be in conjunction with the 10th anniversary. It just makes too much sense, and really feels like the last realistic chance. Either way, if we don't hear something soon, I can't help but feel like the entire community is going to succumb to madness by the end of this rollercoaster ride. Finally then, what would I like to see from a hypothetical Bloodborne resurgence, should the game ever make a reappearance? And look, while any kind of performance boost for the game would be hugely appreciated, even if just to bring it up to modern standards of playability, in line with many of the other Soulsborne titles, I've waited too long now for just a patch. I don't think that would be a wholly satisfying payoff. At the very least, I want a new, tangible product, or at least as tangible as is possible in the all-digital age. Bloodborne is my favourite game of all time, and the sanctity of its atmosphere is very important to me. Yharnam is perhaps the best realised game world I have ever personally experienced, and I understand a lot of people did not like how the Demon's Souls remake turned out. I'd never played the original, so I loved the new version, but having seen the differences laid bare side by side, I can totally understand where people who did play and love the original are coming from, so I appreciate there is a level of trepidation when talking about a remake. But I can't deny, I would be fascinated to see someone else's take on Bloodborne, and a remake has the possibility of looking absolutely incredible. I mean, Demon's Souls, regardless of what you think about it, technically I think is probably still one of, if not the best looking game on the PlayStation 5. So I think a remake of Bloodborne could look magnificent, especially if built for the ground up for the PS5. Maybe throw in some pro enhancements too. So I would be over the moon presents with an official remaster, but I think what would get me truly excited as a fan would be to see a remake of the game. And I mean, no one ever said that it couldn't be from themselves who work on said remake, but they do seem to be very busy right now. Anyway, fellow Bloodborne fans, I feel your pain and your frustration, and I can only hope that we are granted eyes at some point, maybe in the very, very near future. Don your clown makeup and keep fighting the good fight, because hopefully something is going to come for this game at some point in the near future. But for now, we can really only wait and see. Alright guys, but that's it for today's video. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something of value away from it as well. Let me know down in the comments below how you're feeling about a possible Bloodborne patch, remaster, or remake maybe coming in the near future if there is a state of play on the horizon. Do these recent DMCA takedowns of high-profile Bloodborne fan projects mean anything as far as you're concerned? Or is this all just Beast Plague-induced delusion on my part? It absolutely could be. At least I'm going into this readily accepting that that could be the case, a very real and likely case. But I do think that the 10th anniversary, I mean, it's obviously a special anniversary, it's a milestone moment, and if they do have plans for this game at all, this does make the most sense, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Alright everyone, thank you so very much for watching. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't done already to help push this channel to its next major milestone, and until next time I'll catch you later, and let's talk games again.